Welcome to Switzerland. I am Josh Friedman, hosting this edition of the FreeManCast, on which we will be focusing on Afghanistan. And in order to make sense of that, I am going to introduce you to Saboor Nadem. How are you doing, Saboor?
Yeah, my name is Saboor Nadem. I am from Afghanistan. I am living in Switzerland and Lucerne city.
So we're near the city of Lucerne right now. And what is our exact location?
Yeah, we are now in the Oberkirch. Here is one of the area belong to Lucerne city, about 15 minutes far from city of Lucerne. We are living here. The camp, the location of here is name is Oberkirch.
So we're at a refugee camp.
Yeah, it's a refugees camp. Yeah.
Okay, and you are from where in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I am from Ghur province. It's one of the central of Afghanistan province.
And I have been covering War province, at least some of the people who have come from War province, for about a year and a half now. I haven't actually been to Afghanistan, and I'm going to rely on your expertise here. But I, about a year and a half ago, ran into you and a couple other people you were traveling with from War province at the Greek-Macedonian border at the famous refugee camp Idomeni. And out of that came the story about Basir Yusufi, who you were traveling with, who ended up being flown into Lithuania and is now living in Lithuania. He spoke Lithuanian, and that was why it was a big story. So I've been following a little bit of the news coming out of War province for the past year and a half, and I was alerted to the fact that War province is back in the news this week as, unfortunately, 3 aid workers, I'm pulling up the story on my computer right now. Actually, there was a press release as well as a Reuters story. There were 3 aid workers. I believe they were international staffers, members of the NGO Catholic Relief Services. They were shot and killed in War province over the weekend. That might have been on Sunday. And that's unfortunate to hear. And that's probably a sign of the times in War province, where there's a rather large insurgency coming from the Taliban and now ISIS or Daesh. Do I have that correct? Inform the audience what's going on in War province.
Yeah, it's good question. And Ghur province also one of the insecure city in Afghanistan. That's why, because the Taliban, ISIS or Daesh, they are activating in the Ghur province. All the times they are propaganda between the people, between the children, between the even workers, and not in the just in the areas. They also existing. They are also activating. They are also influence in the districts of Ghur province. All of the districts, and Ghur province has 9 districts, just one, and that's name is Lalasa Jungle. It's a little bit secure. Another district is the Taliban, and also the Daesh now activating.
So you're saying that the Taliban at least has influence in all of the districts of War province?
Yeah, that's right. The Talibans now, they influence the all of area of Ghur province, especially in the districts like Tayware, like Charsada, Dulaina, Pasawant, and other of districts in Ghur province. For now, the governor, the officials of Ghur province, they cannot travel to the districts because there is not unsecure. There is the Taliban activating. There is just in central of districts, it's belong to it's under hand of government, but and there also the Taliban influence in the city of districts also, because everything the Taliban say to commanders,
We're gonna hold up 1 second. We're gonna be getting into this shortly. This is gonna be a focal point of the podcast. The issue of who controls Afghan districts and who exerts influence, and to what extent they're contested, and to what extent it's really the Taliban or the Afghan government controlling the country. So these are questions that I will be posing to you, and I want to jump back a second to the bigger picture and why we're really raising these issues. And that's because not just war province is in the news right now, but Afghanistan is really in the news. And that's because US President Donald Trump just announced a new strategy in Afghanistan, which is going to be more troops. Right now there's somewhere around 8,000 US troops stationed in Afghanistan, and reports indicate that another few thousand, or 4,000, or several thousand, something in the area of several thousand more American troops are headed for Afghanistan. And there's even talk about the White House, which is now a more business-oriented White House with Trump at the helm. The White House is also discussing possibly tapping into Afghanistan's vast mineral wealth in order to pay for this increasingly costly war. So there's a lot on the table. Afghanistan is in the news in a big way right now, with Trump discussing some sort of a surge there. And I want to get your perspective on a whole lot of issues relating to that. But let's now go back to this topic of who controls Afghanistan, which I think is pertinent in determining how successful, if at all, the U.S. intervention in Afghanistan has been. And should it continue? Should it be ramped up? Should there be a complete withdrawal from Afghanistan, as the citizen Donald Trump and candidate Donald Trump had implied or suggested in the past? So, right now, based on United States military reports that I have in front of me, this is according to the U.S. military, about 60% of the districts in Afghanistan are controlled by the Afghan government. That is according to the U.S. military. About 30% of the districts in Afghanistan are contested, meaning the Taliban, the Afghan government, and maybe other insurgent forces like ISIS are fighting over the districts. And 11%, about 11%, are controlled by the insurgents. So this is according to the U.S. military. According to the U.S. military, the Afghan government controls about... I should actually rephrase this. The terms used by the U.S. military in its reports are controlled or influenced. So the U.S. military says about 60% of districts in Afghanistan are under the control or influence of the Afghan government. About 30% are contested, and about 11% are under the control or influence of insurgents. Now, you are going to argue with what the U.S. military is saying. From your perspective, it is not true that the Afghan government controls or holds influence over 60% of the districts of Afghanistan.
I want to say the truth. I don't know why the military of American or also the government of Afghanistan, they say 60%. It's under hand of government in Afghanistan. Just 11% it's belong or under hand of Taliban, and about another 30 years it's like together.
Yeah, like they're fighting over.
Yeah, like fighting. But when you cannot travel from the city to one area or one village about 2-3 kilometers in Afghanistan, you cannot go. If you cannot go about 2-3 kilometers from the city to the one area or one village, all of there is the Taliban living, the Taliban influence there. When we cannot travel, we cannot go in district, we cannot go travel, we cannot go everywhere we want. How we can say just 11% is between or it's under hands or it's belong to Taliban, that just the Taliban access in 11% of Afghanistan? It is impossible. When we say 11%, when we say 10%, when we say like this, it's impossible in Afghanistan, because in Afghanistan, especially some provinces in Afghanistan, I have experience in the Ghul province. About 2-3 kilometers, some of persons in the before they went there just for one visitor card from the parliamentary or from the candidature. The Taliban they cut it. There's hand, there's head, there's neck. All of it's not easy. We cannot say about.
So you're saying that from your experience, if you try to travel just 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers in Afghanistan, you're probably going to run into the Taliban?
Yeah. It's for now, because.
And is it like that just in some areas, or is it like that in most of the country?
In most of the country, when we travel, there is not safe. There is not anything. If you can have a safe country, safe travel, it's impossible in Afghanistan. When we say that Afghanistan is secure, for what reasons we say that Afghanistan is secure? I cannot say and I believe about 80% Afghanistan is unsecure. 80% area of Afghanistan is not under hands of government, because all of this areas belong to Taliban. The Taliban activities there, the Taliban propaganda between the people, the Taliban for now and this area they recruiting. Yeah, and also it's not easy to say a lie. It's not good in Afghanistan. You know, me know, every people they live in Afghanistan. If you ask from every Afghans people, they will not say 11 area in Afghanistan is under hand of Taliban. They everyone say more than 80%. In civil and also in Afghanistan, civil activists, all the times they say 80% of Afghanistan is belong to the Taliban. For now, Afghanistan has 350,000 military in Afghanistan, but they are also weak against the Taliban.
Okay, so from your perspective and from the reports put out by, I guess these are combination of NGOs and monitoring organizations and civil servants, from a combination of these perspectives, you're saying that about 80% of Afghanistan is under the control or influence of the Taliban.
Yeah. For now, this quantity is right.
Okay, I'd also like to discuss a little bit about your background and your experience to try to bolster your credibility a little bit, which I think is deserved. You're a journalist by trade, right?
Yeah, I'm a journalist, yeah.
what kind of journalistic work did you do in Afghanistan?
When I was in Afghanistan, I worked with private media and with government media. I worked with radios, I worked with TV, I worked with some magazine in Ghur province. Just in Ghur province, not out of Ghur province. I worked there with media about 6 years. I worked there with different. I worked with different programs, with different positions. When I was in Ghur province for 4 years, that time was not so bad for me. Because that times just I was a small reporters, announcer, or some programs like social programs, economic programs, political programs. I did it there. But after 4 years, when I assigned it as a program manager and Radio Firisku, after that for 2 years I was there, worked as a program manager at Radio Firisku. And that time, every day my life has been to a danger, because when I publish it by the Facebook of radio, by the page of radio, when I publish and hours news and the Ghur province, when we have 2-3 hours in the Ghur news reports.
You were publishing news reports on the fighting in War province.
Yeah.
And that included that included news on the number of people getting killed and injured, right?
Yeah. When I was there, when I prepared some news, some report about every kind of issue, like when I called to the police officer, when I called to the officials, government in the Ghur province, what about this issue, what about this event, they said, everything they said, I publish it, because I must. After that, the Taliban, some local groups, some announced people, they make me problems. Why you publish this? Why you not publish?
Did they threaten you?
Yeah.
What did they say they were gonna do to you?
When I publish it, some news like the Taliban, many people the Taliban killed or injured. When I publish it on the Facebook, when I publish it on the hours news and the Radio Firisku, after that they make me problems, because why you publish 5 Talib or 6 Talib killed or injured? Everything we say it is true. That's not true. I said it is the government, it is the official government, it's the official security forces. They say it like this. I cannot everything
did the
which
Taliban,
I want.
Did anyone threaten to injure you or kill you?
Like you? Yeah. So someone called me, if you the second time publish this news, if you continue your job like this, we will kill you, we will kidnap you, we will terror you, we will like this, like that, and it is so easy in Afghanistan. If someone tell to you by phone or send you some paper, it is not easy to live more in Afghanistan country. They will kill you, they will everything they want. It's so easy in Afghanistan.
And you find your experience in War province to be representative of Afghanistan as a whole.
Yeah.
You were telling me that as a journalist, and you also were an on-air radio host, right? Like, did you do radio on? You were an announcer on the radio also?
Yeah, announcer. I was also on radio.
Okay. As a journalist, you were conducting interviews with Afghan soldiers, is that true?
Yeah.
What were the soldiers telling you?
When you be a journalist, you must contact with many people, soldiers, civilian peoples, government peoples, every kind of people you must contact, because it's important when you make some news, some report. It's important to many sources you put in your news and your report.
What were the sources of yours from within the Afghan military telling you?
Okay. When I was in Ruhr province, one day I wanted to make a news about the military situation. Why the Taliban killed the military? Why the Taliban killed the innocent persons or civilian persons? What is the important reasons? And one military, when he come from the Helmand province, we were together about 10 or 12 persons in the one room. I asked from him, how was the Helmand situation when you go in the war with Taliban, when you fighting, when you be face to face with Taliban? What did you do, or what are you doing there? He said so sad, so nervous. Said unfortunately when our commanders sent us to the one checkpoint or another checkpoint or another pound for fighting with, against the Taliban, and that times with the Taliban attack to us, we cannot fire, we cannot kill the Taliban, because that the commanders be with us. He said you not allowed to kill the Taliban, you're not allowed to fire the Taliban face or the body of Talibans. I said, why you it's very hell, it's so hell, it's not good, it's very bad. When the Taliban kill you, you cannot kill the Taliban. It's so bad. He said, yeah, it's bad, but the commanders of us, they not allowed us to kill the Taliban, to fight the Taliban. It's also another problem between the Persian, between the Pashtun, between the languages in Afghanistan. When you that person told me, when we go and fighting with Taliban, when one Farsi or one speaking Farsi or Dari, that person when fighting with Taliban, another Farsi must the back of that person take the security that person. If not security, another Pashtun soldiers kill him. It is another problems, and when they going to the fighting or war with the Taliban.
Are you saying that from your reporting, you have come to the belief that the Taliban has influence over Afghan military units that are actually fighting the Taliban?
That's when the Taliban fighting against the military of Afghanistan.
You were raising a point off camera. We were talking about how we're really dissecting the issue of who has control, who has influence over different parts of Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And you were saying that there are police officials and military officials, commanders, and other people who are powerful in the police and the military. You're saying that they are receiving their checks, their money from the Afghan government.
Yeah.
But you're also saying that sometimes they are under the influence of the Taliban.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also right.
And I think that relates to what you're saying about commanders instructing their soldiers not to kill the Taliban.
Yeah, it's true. When the soldiers, the commanders not allowed the soldiers to kill the Taliban.
Is that because...
It's clear.
Is that because they've been corrupted? They're under influence of the Taliban?
It's clear. It's clear. Many commanders of police, army, military, they are connecting with Taliban. They are also one of the influence of Taliban.
And why is that? How does the Taliban get influence over these commanders?
It is one of the problems because the Taliban is speaking Pashto. That the more commanders in an army, on the military, on the police, and the local police, they are also speaking Pashto. Many politicians in Afghanistan, they believe according in this. That's why the Taliban, if the government of Afghanistan wants, really they can kill the Taliban, they can get out the Taliban from the Afghanistan, but they don't want. Just it's like football playing. You know also during the 1 month about 4 and 5 district the Taliban fill, and the Taliban catch it, and then after 1 week 2 week the government catch it, or the government fill. It's like playing.
You're saying they're kicking it around like a football.
Yeah, it's like the district pass government to Taliban, Taliban pass to the government. It's like playing, like games, like match between the Taliban, between the government.
And how much of the country is like that? Like, what percentage of the country is districts going back and forth?
It's also more than 60. It's not about 75 or until 80. It's like this. About the 3 weeks before, one of the Ghur province district, they were also is filled with the Taliban hands. After 1 week, when everything is Taliban fired, the Taliban, all of furniture, all of materials, all of instruments which will belong to the governments, all of them they fired, all of them they took with themselves. After that, after 1 week, the government came fill again. it's like play.
If anyone from the U.S. military would like to give a rebuttal to this, he or she is more than welcome on this program, and I would like to hear that perspective. But it's clear from what you're saying that, from your perspective and the perspective of many other people in Afghanistan, the Taliban has far more control and or influence than 11% of the country, as is indicated in these military reports. Now, that on a larger scale is very interesting because it really calls into question the success of the U.S. war in Afghanistan. That after all of these years, after more than 15 years of fighting, of intervention, of supposed rebuilding of provinces, after all this effort, after all of this money has been poured in, very little of the country, from your perspective and from the perspective of many other Afghans, is actually under the control of the Afghan government. So would you say that the U.S. war in Afghanistan has been a failure?
U.S.?
The NATO, the Western intervention, the United States, in the war in Afghanistan, Americans and NATO, their efforts in Afghanistan, would you say that they have failed?
Yeah, the United States, it's not 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it's many years they are being in Afghanistan, they are existing in Afghanistan, they are fighting against Taliban. It's not the original fighting, it's not the reality fighting against the Taliban. They didn't want to take the Afghanistan security. The government of Afghanistan, the American or United States, it is the same. The United States come to Afghanistan for now 8,500 soldiers of America and Afghanistan, the activities. Every time I hear from the press, from the media, they cannot do anything in Afghanistan. Just they giving the mineral in Afghanistan.
So you're saying, which is something that's come up under Trump and the previous administrations, although Trump seems to be more active in trying to change this culture. There has been a complaint that the U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan have their hands tied behind their back, like, as you were saying with the Afghan soldiers, that they don't actually have the authority to kill the Taliban.
Yeah, And about last year, I heard from the media and just Nangarhar province about more than $20 million the Taliban they took from the mineral of Afghanistan, like lithium, uranium, platinum, like jewelry, every kind of mineral they gave from the ground. Just the Taliban. Just when the Trump said, I want to make secure in Afghanistan. I want to Afghanistan and secure change to secure Afghanistan. It is impossible because the Trump don't want. Just the Trump is the mineral of Afghanistan. The Trump and the new strategic, the Trump said one important things. If the American is not existing in Afghanistan, maybe the Afghanistan go back to 2001. The all of Afghanistan may become the terrorist. It's not true. When the America existing in Afghanistan, if the United States or the Trump president wants, they can change Afghanistan unsecure and the secure, but they don't want. Just it's like play. It's like play with the Afghanistan government, with the area of Afghanistan. Just they giving some mineral on Afghanistan. It's not more.
It is certainly a geopolitical conflict, and the minerals play a big part. China certainly has interest in accessing Afghanistan's mineral wealth. There are large natural gas deposits, which Russia has its eyes on, or has had its eyes on for a while. The U.S. might have its eyes on those natural gas deposits as well, and militarily, Afghanistan could side with various geopolitical powers. So there's certainly a geopolitical game to this, and it'd be interesting to see in which directions Afghanistan goes in the years to come. Do you think that there's anything, you kind of implied it, do you think there's anything the U.S. government and military could do to make things better in Afghanistan? Or would that mean getting out of the country altogether?
Yeah. For now in Afghanistan really need to help, because the Afghans people, they don't want fight, they don't want war, they don't want to make any problems in Afghanistan. All of Afghans said, we want peace, we want relaxed times, we want secure, please, like this, like that. But one part of problems in Afghanistan is that American hands, because the United States with President Trump has, it's one of the problems. Another problems in Afghanistan is Iran, another problem is Russia, another problem is China, another problem is Pakistan. All of hands just through in Afghanistan. It's every countries which I called, they are also going in Afghanistan. They want to help Afghanistan. It's just in the time, just they say, it's not the truly. When they come Afghanistan, every country has an info, like President Trump will give the mineral, the Russian want the gas, the China also want another info, the Pakistan, they turning the terrorists, they turning the explosions persons, they making the suicide persons come to Afghanistan, the explosion, they suiciding, they kidnap the persons, they killing the innocent, the civilian persons. I don't think that Afghanistan is going and will. When we will have a secure country, secure Afghanistan, one of the problems in Afghanistan is ethnic problems. Do you know ethnic problems? It's between the people.
Can you? I think you've already touched on it, but can you briefly discuss or mention the ethnicities that are battling, that are fighting one another?
It's like the people influence. Do you know the people has a lot of people?
Yes. Which ethnic groups are fighting?
In Afghanistan, for now, it's a big problem between the two ethnics, Pashtun and Farsi in Afghanistan, Tajik, Uzbek, Hazara.
And these are all the second group is they're all Farsi speakers.
Yeah, the all of Uzbek, Hazara, Tajik, the three parts is one part. There are no problem in Afghanistan. The Pashtun, the all of Pashtun people in Afghanistan, they say Afghanistan is belong to us. Pashtun, it's belong to Afghanistan. Afghanistan is belong to Pashtun. Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek is like refugees. The Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek say we are how we are refugees. We are also Afghans. We are also we can live here. We want to work in Afghanistan. We want to living in Afghanistan. It is one of the problems in Afghanistan between the two ethnics, Pashtun and Farsi. It's one part. They are fighting all the times together. United States giving mineral, Russian giving another things, China giving another things, and also the Pakistan. They making terrorists. They sent to Afghanistan. Every time the Afghanistan explosion, every time Afghanistan suicide, every time Afghanistan is fighting, warring. It's everything. I don't think on easy we have a save Afghanistan.
Well, I appreciate your input, your analysis, sharing some of your reporting and personal experience with me and with the audience. In separate videos, we're discussing more about your personal story as a refugee. So you can, if whoever's interested in that, you can look out for those videos on this channel as well. Saboor, it was a pleasure speaking with you. And is there any last thought that you would like to share with the audience very quickly?
About what?
I think we covered plenty. Maybe you just want to say goodbye from Switzerland.
Yeah. Really, I say thank you so much from Josh to come in here in Switzerland to wants to hear my problems. Especially Afghanistan problems to record here. When I left Afghanistan, when I come from Afghanistan to Europe, I had many problems between the way. I had many problems and the Europe ways. The Balkan was closed. Every country, the border was closed. It wasn't so easy to come from border to border.
Well, you're here now, and we're discussing those issues on separate videos. And for now, we're displaying your journalistic insights a little bit. That's part of what this podcast is also about. I wish you nothing but luck and success on your journey as a journalist, a traveler, and a new European. And once again, thank you for sharing your insights with me. If you enjoyed this edition of the FreeManCast, please leave a like on this video on YouTube, as well as share it on social media and subscribe to the channel from, what's the name of this town again in Switzerland?
Oberkirch.
From Oberkirch. Oh, my Swiss German is terrible. From Oberkirch. So long and farewell, and what do you say here? Ciao?
Ciao.
Adi?
In Swiss, German say Adi.
Okay. Adi.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you so much, everyone which watching our video, our interview. It's so interesting for me to hear someone what's going in my country, what's going in my mind, what want I say. It is so beautiful for me. Thank you so much from Josh to come in Switzerland, especially in Lutzer, in Oberkirch area. I want to say thank you, Adi, ciao.
You're very
Goodbye.
Adi.